Some really exciting updates today. So I'm going to talk about some of the work that we've been doing at Runway over the past year. For those who don't know, Runway, we build creative tools. We're an applied research company that works in the intersection of art and technology and focuses a lot on kind of the next generation of generative media tools. I always like to start my presentations by kind of doing a brief history, just to contextualize the current moment that we're in. I think it's easy, as given the pace at which the field is moving, to forget how quickly things have evolved and how much progress we've made in such a short period of time. So this is what generative video looked like in 2020. This was the first kind of generative video feature that we released before kind of generative models were kind of all over the place. It allowed you to, it took an image model, a generative adversarial network, which was the popular kind of architecture at the time, and interpolated between different kind of points in the latent space. It was decent at generating, at being able to train a model on just one specific type of object, like shoes or faces, but it could barely generalize. And even at this very specific domain, it wasn't kind of that photorealistic. Moving on, we go to 2021, and this was our first internal attempt to make a short film using generative models. It's a film kind of internally that we call the Orange, and it was using a kind of interactive segmentation to translation model. So as you can see, it wasn't quite it was very pixelated. It's very low frame rate. We had to create each frame one by one. You could tell a story, but maybe not a very compelling one. And now we're moving on to 2022, and progress in image generation is moving fast. And while you don't have a very coherent kind of long video, you start to have at least the first frame being getting close to photorealism and getting close to kind of something compelling. And then we move on to 2023. That's when we released our first kind of generative video models, Gen 1 and Gen 2. And these are some clips from our Gen 2 model. So you can see you're now starting to get this signs of motion. You can see animals moving. You can see kind of the waterfall flowing. But the scenes are still fairly static. You don't see much change in the scenes. And finally, at 2024, we released Gen 3 Alpha. And you can see, I think the leap in quality and photorealism should be obvious, but more so the leap in the ability to generate coherent motion. You can see that the scene can change over time, things that really weren't present before. So the goal of this brief history is to just show, create that exercise of extrapolating where we're going to be a few years from now, if that pace of progress continues. The way we think about video generation is as a kind of world modeling. That's the framework we've been taking as we continue to scale those models. In order for those models to predict video, to be able to generate coherent video that looks like real-world video, it needs to learn different concepts about the world. It needs to learn both the semantics and the visual composition of scenes, but it also needs to learn 3D consistency. It needs to move in a scene in a way where objects maintain their place. It needs to handle occlusions. So there's all these aspects that the model is not explicitly trained to learn. It learns those aspects of the visual world by just this simple task of predicting the video. Kind of similar to in the language domain, how we predict the next token, predicting the next frame, gives rise to all those amazing capabilities. And while the scaling laws on the language domain have been, at this point, fairly established and adopted by the field, it took a longer time for the same kind of framework to be adopted in the image and video domain. But it really, we see the same thing in the image and video domain, as we saw in the language domain, we saw that as you put more compute and data into these models, they're able to, consistently and predictably improve in performance and improve in the ability to generate kind of photorealistic, really well-aligned to a text prompt. And we expect that to continue. I think we're close to saturating the improvements from scaling those models. And we see that as a very viable path towards building more and more capable general world models. So I want to showcase some of the emerging capabilities that we've seen with Gen 3 Alpha. Again, those are not explicit tasks that we train the model with. Those are things that the model kind of learn on its own. One of the most surprising and interesting aspects of Gen 3 Alpha is the ability to really introduce changes in the scene that weren't over the duration of the video. So this was something that the previous generation of models really struggled with. It might be able to generate, continue the motion from the first frame, but it wasn't really able to introduce new elements on the scene. And this is something that if you want to tell a narrative that where things happen, you want to be able to do that. It's much better at photorealism specifically for humans. Obviously, generating human characters that are able to do a wide range of motions and actions in the world is a very important part of doing any kind of storytelling. And we saw with Gen 3 Alpha this really, really amazing emergent capabilities and the ability for humans not just to display coherent motion, but also to interact with objects and have the state of the objects change in response to that. So here you can see as the person is playing the piano keys respond to that interaction, which is, it might seem an obvious thing, but it's something that the model had to learn about how different elements in the scene will interact with one another and how different actions that you take change the state of the world. We also saw a really amazing improvement in the ability to generate text. And this is something that, again, it's a bit different than what we see on the image domain, where you might be able to render photorealistic text. But here you can see that the text might appear in the middle of the scene, and you have this really ability to create these amazing titles and animated content out of it. And what I'm really excited about is this ability to really understand in a deeper way the interactions that happen in the world. It's not perfect. It doesn't follow the laws of gravity perfectly. It has an intuitive understanding of physics, just like humans do. But compared to the previous generation of models, it's quite a big leap. And similarly, the ability to simulate liquid quite coherently is something that, again, was not explicitly taught in the model, and it's able to kind of learn that from data, which is really remarkable. One of the big focus points at Runway is the ability to control the outputs of the models. We're not just interested in research for the sake of research, in having really compelling outputs from the model, but outputs that reflect the desires, the vision, the ideas of the artists and the creators that use our platform. And so a big focus for us has been this idea of multimodal control, of being able not just to control the outputs that you want to generate by text, but also by starting image, by conditioning on an input video. And all those modalities have different use cases. And the general way we think about it is that we want to maximize the number of choices that artists can make in the course of using those tools. And this is a bit different than the traditional perspective around those AI models, which is kind of minimize the choices in some ways to allow the model to kind of take actions on its own. Because ultimately, making art, telling stories, it's really, we see it as a reflection of kind of the human that's creating those stories and a reflection. And rather than trying to kind of automate that process, we just want to augment the artists that are using the platform. So another way to think about it is, there's a lot of talks about agents, about this ability to kind of independently take kind of multi-step actions in the world or to do kind of complicated multi-step reasoning. But we see the models as more thought partners where we want to maximize actually the input and the ability to tell unique stories by human users rather than tell a story that's compelling. Because I think that's ultimately where I believe the real promise of generative media exists, in this ability to maximize and kind of increase the number of stories that are told, and kind of we say internally, like, the best stories have not been told yet, the best movies have not been made. And I believe that in order to really tell those stories, you need to be able to feel like the tool is part of you. It's not something that's kind of independently working in the world. So it's a different perspective than the kind of more common approach that's being taken these days with those generative models. But I do think it's a much more promising way of actually making those models usable and useful for people. Just to showcase some of the work that we've been doing on controllability, I want to highlight 2 different control modes that we've introduced in the past few months. This is the image to video mode, and it allows you to, given a starting frame, which in this case, it's kind of photos from in different places in New York, you can introduce elements in the scene. And what I'm really excited about is, again, this idea that you can really, really kind of introduce really dramatic change in the scene. You can open portals to other dimensions. You can, and this is not what traditional image to video was able to do. And so we've seen really amazing work being done with our image to video tool. And similarly, we've seen really amazing work done with video to video tool. So video to video allows you to take an input video, which might be something you shoot with your camera, and then maintain the structure, the overall structure of the video, but completely transform the style. So in this case, you have actually a video that's taken with a Vision Pro from our office in New York. And you can see how you can kind of completely transform it. And the use cases for that are so vast, like the ability to, I like to call it the actually augmented reality. This is, you can really create an extremely compelling, transform completely like what you're seeing in real time. A lot of engineering challenges went into training Gen 3 Alpha. There is, at this point, more established practices on the language domain and training and scaling language models, but there is some unique challenges around training video models. The most obvious one is that each sample, the size of each sample is orders of magnitude greater than the size of a sample that goes into kind of language model training. And that introduces a lot of bottlenecks on the kind of data loading side, on making sure that that network does not become a bottleneck, and yet that you're able to handle kind of computation overlap well. A lot of challenges specifically go into data preprocessing, on ensuring that your data set that you're training on contains the tasks that you want the model to learn. And it also contains, balances quality, balances diversity of content, of styles. There's so many dimensions of quality and, that you need to think through, and making sure that you curate the data set well. And in order to tackle those data preprocessing challenges, we kind of looked around, and we really restructured our data infrastructure and data pipeline. And this is where Ray was crucial. And the work that the AnyScale team has been doing has been really fantastic at enabling us to really move fast and perform the data preprocessing, that large-scale data preprocessing on time. We solved challenges for the first time, where we scaled to tens of thousands of instances to do our data preprocessing work, and the AnyScale team was really there, an extension of our team to help us through those challenges. And Ray really starts from a principle of getting the developer experience right, and then building everything else on top of that. And I think that's the right mindset to take, especially on a field that's moving as fast as this field, where the patterns of communication, the kind of workloads that you want to run, change so quickly. with every model scale, with every next generation models or new modality that you're introducing, there is new unique challenges to that. And Ray allows you to really iterate much faster, to run things very easily locally and then scale them to large-scale workloads like much faster than other frameworks that we tried. And so we're really happy with our collaboration so far with the Anyscale team. I want to talk a bit about what's next. Again, I want to go back into this idea of world modeling and this idea that understanding the visual world is really fundamental to building building generally useful systems with generative models. I think it's an underlooked aspect of intelligence. I think there is perhaps too much focus on the language domain and achieving, achieving general intelligence through language. But there is so many aspects of the world that are not actually properly captured in language. And language is a very lossy compression of reality. So there is a lot of room to take this idea of world modeling from visual data further. And visual data could be, could be extremely multi-scale. You can describe anything from kind of angstrom scale, kind of interactions, to really kind of describe kind of astrophysics data that's also expressed in kind of video form. And so that's what's coming next for us, is this kind of expansion of the vision of world models to be able to achieve more, build more universal simulations of reality. And the applications for that, I think, are vast. They go beyond content creation. They go towards a wide variety of use cases that I'm really excited about. You might wonder, what's the connection between this idea of world modeling, this idea of understanding the world to a greater extent than before, with the kind of artistic focus of our team, which is at the core of what we do at Runway. And I think they're actually very much related. The more you can model reality, the more you can build a very accurate distribution of the world. The more you can actually go out of distribution. And you're seeing with that with a lot of the videos that come out of Gen 3 Alpha. They're videos that don't look like any videos that have ever been made before, because those models learn the constituents aspects of the data they're trained on, and they can combine and remix and put concepts together that have never been put together before. And the only way to achieve that is to actually for the models to learn those concepts well. So I believe that as we build more and more capable world models, we're also going to be able to make art that's even more unique and even more out of distribution than before. Nothing that we do at Runway matters if, without the community of artists and creators that use Runway every day. I think it's really important for us to push the field of generative media forward. And there is, at this point, not as many opportunities for the creators that are using those, that are experimenting with those models, that are really kind of discovering what AI filmmaking is about. And so a lot of our effort at Runway has been spent on kind of building that community, on finding ways to showcase all the great work that's been done by the kind of artists that are taking a chance on those models, on this technology. We've been hosting this AI film festival for the past 2 years. We hope to continue it, which showcases short films that use AI in one way or another. And we've seen really amazing stories come out of that festival. We've seen people start entire careers from the festival, where before, this was something they were experimenting with part-time, and now for the first time, after showcasing their film, they're now able to kind of build a career out of making those films. more recently, we announced the 100 Film Fund, and this is yet another opportunity to sponsor and support artists that are making compelling stories with generative media. This is a fund that supports specific AI film projects that use AI in one form or another. And we're very excited to see what stories are created once those artists and creators have the space and the time to actually work with those tools and make compelling stories with those tools. So I think the next year we're going to see AI filmmaking. As the models improve, AI filmmaking will expand even further. And we're going to see so many new stories being told that have never been told before. And I could not be more excited about that. Thank you.